Hey everybody. So this morning we're going to go into chapter 8. So I'd like you to open your books to page 54. And at the top of page 54, and you'll recognize this section as being a section that we often do at the beginning of each chapter. This one invites us to revisit some activities that we've done in the past, either this year in 6th grade or in previous years of learning math. So at the top of page 54, notice that they are pointing out that you have already had experience finding missing numbers in all 4 of the operations. And in this most recent chapter, chapter 7 on algebraic expressions, you were learning to replace that question mark with a variable. And so this is really some very simple math where you're just going to go through and replace in the quick check what the missing number is. And I want you to take a moment to notice that the missing number is found not just through logic and thinking it through, but also noticing that you, for example, number 1, where it's showing 14 plus blank is 19 over here, that really you would know from experience that it's 5, but the way you would actually find that is by subtraction. So even though it's an addition problem, by subtracting 14 from 19, you're actually doing a subtraction problem and finding the answer. Remind yourself in this moment, too, that addition and subtraction are opposites. We call them inverse operations. Multiplication and division are also inverse operations. So when we're solving problems for variables, which is what we're going to be doing in this chapter, you're going to be using the opposite. You're going to use the inverse operation. So as you go through this section on recalling prior knowledge, I'd like you to bear that in mind. You're using the inverse or the opposite operation to solve these problems. I also want you to be reminded at the bottom of page 54, where it's showing that we use these different symbols: equal sign, a not equal sign, a greater than, and a less than symbol. Also notice that they're reminding you of the value of negative numbers. Remind yourself when you look, for example, at number 8, which one is greater. It looks like 16 would be greater, but since they're negative numbers, it really comes down to the distance from 0. Remember back in the day we talked about negative numbers, that the ice in an ice fishing derby would be 0. Everything in the air is a positive number. Everything under the ice or water is a negative number. So when you're looking at what's greater, really look at the one that's closest to 0. The one that's closest to 0 is going to have the greater value. So if it helps, maybe rewrite a negative number line to remind yourself of that 0 being in the middle, positives going this way or this way, right? If you're using a vertical number line, or to the left for negative numbers, or down lower. So then let's scoot over to page 55 at the top. It's showing you, reminding you of some of the vocabulary using variables to write algebraic expressions. So sums, differences, products, and remember that the answer to a division problem is called its quotient. So that's something that the book will come up with as well. Then you're warming your brain up a little bit more by writing just 4 algebraic expressions based on the statements. And then take a moment to review at the bottom of page 55 where it says evaluating algebraic expressions. That's the substitution piece that we worked on. That was important. That was a section 2 of chapter 7 where you were learning to substitute when you're given a value for x or for whatever variable is being used. And then test yourself a little bit on the quick check at the bottom of page 55. And then 56, we start going into the coordinate plane. So last week you did a little bit of work on the coordinate plane and on conicotomy. So this is a reminder of how we plot points. It's just showing one quadrant of the coordinate plane. And then you are doing a quick check where you're plotting the points at the bottom of the page, number 15. So it's going to take you about 15 minutes to do this recall prior knowledge. If you could do that today, that would be fantastic. And then if it takes you less time than that, then you can go on to the next video. But I don't want you to plow through this chapter too quickly. So take your time on the recalling prior knowledge, and then maybe just preview section 1 of the chapter instead of going through it. It might be fun to go through and do the thinks or the engages. This is also an opportunity for students who are still working on their math facts to spend some time trying to play some multiplication games and things online. I'll put some links up for that as well. Hope you're having a great day. Bye, everybody.